Morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. And the week goes on. But at least it's getting warmer. Hope y'all are having a great week. I'm having a great week, busy week. What else is new? Need to find time to groom some dogs. Good morning, hair today. I'm assuming that's Ashley. As for our pet food company owners, this is kind of important info. Hello from Hong Kong. Amazing. Yeah, we are pretty international at this point, which is pretty cool, really. I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, so everybody, welcome back to Heart Week. We've talked about heart disease in dogs, heart disease in cats, and if you missed yesterday, we talked about the different supplements, some of which are in our web store, some are not. There's a lot of good combination products on the market that there's no way I can cover all of them. The biggest problem with the combination products is they may have enough of one ingredient, but not enough of all the ingredients. So for instance, we talked about CoQ10, we want really high levels of that, and I find that most of the supplements, it's sort of like spitting in the wind. They just don't have enough CoQ10. So you're going to end up having to add on to that. So for my guys, I really don't use combination products for the heart disease. I use separate things so that I can get my taurine, my carnitine, my CoQ10, my omega-3s at the level that I want them at. Yes, it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt to have 5 different things instead of one combination product. But for me, that allows me to really tailor my protocol for each dog or cat, depending on what their stage of disease is and how they're doing with things, so that I can raise things up and down based on how things are going. So all right, so one of the things that we talked about is that carnitine and taurine are 2 amino acids that are found in really high concentration in heart muscle. But they're also found in really high concentration in other things that we can add to the diet to help provide those amino acids. Besides adding them in as a powder or a capsule, we can just feed foods that are very high naturally in those amino acids. So I mentioned a little bit yesterday about raw goat milk. Goat milk is amazing as far as being really high in carnitine and taurine. So that's a really good nutritional source. Other things that are very high in carnitine and taurine are red meat like beef and heart muscle meat from any source. Nutritional sources with high level of taurine include shellfish, like mussels, and I use mussels in a lot of my recipes, scallops, clams, dark meat poultry. And this is where I find that a lot of people make mistakes because they're worried about the fat content, so they always want to go toward chicken breast or turkey breast. You can't do that. You need to include the dark meat. You've got to include the thigh, you've got to include the wings, or the legs. You've got to get that dark meat because it's so much more rich and nutritious. So even if you do 50-50 white meat and dark meat, you've got to get the dark meat in there because it's going to be much higher in the amino acids that we're looking for. Goat milk also contains GABA, which is GABA aminobutyric acid, which is a neurotransmitter, and it modulates blood pressure, immune function, insulin sensitivity, and stress. And we want to keep the stress level low for these animals. So if your pets like goat milk, certainly I would really try to get that if you can find a reputable source. There are some dehydrated and freeze-dried goat milk products on the market. That's gone through a processing step, so we might lose a little bit in the process, but if that's all you can get, you don't have refrigerator or freezer space, but you can store the dehydrated or frozen or freeze-dried product, then better than nothing, for sure. Okay, so from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, and I'll talk about this more with supporters tomorrow night. Hopefully that I will have everything together for that. Heart failure and heart enlargement are related to heart chi deficiency, which is an energy deficiency, and we talked about that. The heart doesn't have enough strength to push the blood through the heart as it goes, as it gets weaker and weaker with time. And it's also blood stagnation. If you think about it, if the heart isn't pumping it, the blood is pooling and sitting there. So we need things that are going to resolve that stagnation, that are going to improve the chi, get the energy going. So when we look at diets for these animals, we're going to include chi tonics and ingredients to resolve stagnation to keep that blood moving. And I'll give you some lists of those, but those lists are available, I think, on our website, but also in the books, the Yin and Yang Nutrition and the From Needles to Naturals books. Okay. All right, so chi tonic foods. And these really fit right in with what I've already been talking about. Beef, dark meat, poultry, rabbit, tripe. Tripe is good for so many things, it's just very smelly. Pumpkin, and a lot of people use pumpkin for GI health. Well, it's also very good as a chi tonic. Squash, particularly things like the butternut squash, the acorn squash, those winter squashes. Sweet potato, I don't really use sweet potato in my diets, but a lot of people do, and their dogs or cats do well with it. For kitty cats, I'd be using a really, really, really small amount. And shiitake mushrooms, and I use shiitake mushrooms in so many of my recipes. I'm using them to help fight cancer, to provide prebiotics for the bowel. They drain damp, which is really important when we're talking about heart failure, fluid buildup. So getting some mushrooms in there, if you can't get fresh shiitake or reishi or maitake mushrooms, then we've got mushroom powders for that, and you can certainly use the powders. I take 2 mushroom powders myself. I take lion's mane for neurologic health and clarity. Hopefully it's helping. And I also take tremella to lower blood cholesterol and keep my blood flowing better. Okay, foods that help resolve stagnation and help eliminate fluid buildup. And this becomes a much bigger problem as our pets are moving more into heart failure. They're starting to need those diuretics. We want to keep those diuretic levels as low as possible so that we don't develop secondary pancreatitis, so we don't develop secondary kidney failure. So foods that can help with that: celery, watermelon, dandelion greens and dandelion roots, and parsley. I use asparagus a lot, and you can also use radish. Those are really good. And it's if you use a sweet radish, it's amazing. Our dogs and cats will usually eat them, just grind them up in little bits in the food. And then blood tonic foods, particularly if we have anemic animals and we're getting that secondary murmur and heart problems pumping because they're anemic. Blood tonic foods are going to include those nice red things like red meats, the organs, egg yolks, and sardines. So, all right, let's talk I'll go back to that. All right, so like feeds like, we've talked about that all week, so we definitely want to feed some heart muscle. And if you can't get fresh or frozen heart muscle, then use freeze-dried. As treats, you can add them into the diet, you can use them as treats. There's so many of those available at this point, and we talked about a lot of those yesterday. We want to definitely feed a meat-based diet, not a highly processed diet loaded with carbohydrates that is going to do nothing good for heart health. We need that meat. We need those amino acids. So the big thing, we'll hit this again. I can't believe there's still a conversation about this, but the big thing with the DCM, dilated cardiomyopathy, and the grain-free diets, the problem is they're dry kibble. And they don't have enough meat protein in them, so they don't have enough taurine in them. When we take pea protein and we use that to replace meat protein, we don't get the taurine. So grains, dogs, not cats, dogs are capable of converting cysteine and methionine, which are 2 other amino acids, into taurine. So that's where the veterinarians come off with, well, we'll add grains to the diet. Well, no, just get rid of the dry processed kibble. Don't add grains. There's no need for them. our pets have zero requirement for carbohydrates. You will find nothing in AFCO that says that our pets have a requirement for carbohydrates. So if you are feeding a meat-based diet, if you look at my recipes, there's a lot of meat in there. There's no grains in there. And we're getting the taurine, we're getting the carnitine because we are supplying organs, meats, eggs, fish, things that have what we need. So I'm not a fan of grain-free kibble. I'm not a fan of kibble, period, because it is not supplying what our pets need. All right, so foods that will increase blood health, I mentioned some. Beef, liver, heart, sardines, carrots, dates, parsley, eggs, and brown rice. You'd be amazed how many dogs love dates and figs, and they're really good blood tonics. More foods to drain fluid: mackerel, barley, mushrooms, and garlic. And I know don't feed the garlic to your kitty cats, but it is fine for dogs. That we've debunked that 100 times. We can debunk it one more time. Garlic is fine. And let's see. For Chi Tonic, I did talk about that. We'll add millet and oats if you are feeding grains. Those are good Chi Tonics. Okay. So, I am not a fan of prescription heart diet foods. First of all, kibble needs to go. So, a prescription kibble is going to be zero help for your pet. They're coming out with these new ones that they are saying are so good for heart health. You know what they've done? They've added more omega-3s, which, by the way, get destroyed in the heat processing. They become rancid when we spray those fats on there. And they're adding synthetic chemical additives for the vitamin and mineral mix because, oh, by the way, the nutrition is pretty much killed when we cook these foods at very high heats. When they go through the extruder to make a dry kibble, it's very high heat. So we're destroying a lot of the nutrients, which is why we have to add all that back in. And it's a lot of synthetics. And that's the stuff that causes allergies, that causes leaky gut, that causes inflammatory bowel, because for the body, when it sees those synthetics, it's like, oh my gosh, that is a foreign invader I have to attack. And then we get all these secondary immune system problems. So what I have found over the years, I have not used, well, okay, I'm gonna qualify this, and if you've read my book, From Needles to Natural, there's a chapter in there called Pet Food Salesman. The second practice that I worked in when I graduated from school, we sold more prescription diets than probably any other practice in the country. My boss was flown all over the world on all kinds of extravagant trips, paid for by the prescription food company because we sold so much, and it was a huge profit center. So I will admit, when they came out with their heart diet in both canned and dry, we prescribed it because that's what we did, and that was all I knew at the time. Since I've learned better, I now would like to apologize to all those animals who are now in heaven, because it was back in the 80s, but I'm going to apologize to all of them. I'm really sorry I made you eat that crap. What I have found, and why our dogs do so well and go way past their given expiration date by their cardiologist, is that we feed real food with real ingredients. We're not adding synthetics. Even our supplements, our whole food ingredients, we're not adding synthetic ingredients to what we are feeding our pets. So we are giving them the nutrition that they need to support their body. If we're giving those Chi Tonic foods, we're giving them more energy. If we're giving the blood tonic foods, we're building their blood. We're giving foods to resolve stagnation. We're moving the blood through the body. We're filtering it through the kidneys. We're giving those draining foods, which are getting the fluid out of the lungs, pushing it through the kidneys, detoxifying all the time. So we filmed a video this week with a new heart diet that is not in the yin and, it's a mirror, that is not in the yin and yang book. So it'll be a new recipe. And then we also have a video that we will release today or tomorrow on how to use the Buster ICU oxygen cage at home. We have one here for Stuart. We used it for Pookie. So those two videos will be coming out in the next 48 hours, most likely. There may be links to them in the Friday 5. If you're not signed up for the Friday 5, go to the website, drjudymorgan.com, sign up for the newsletters, where you will get links to all these things. and then it'll all be on the website. So everybody have a wonderful day. Tomorrow we have a special guest at 10:30. I'm really excited. I can't wait because it's a really cool topic, and some of you may not be aware of it, but if you're here listening to Heart Disease Week, it might be something that you're aware of. So we'll see. It's sort of cutting edge. All right, everybody have a wonderful day. I'll see if I can get some music or some barking. Make your animals crazy because why not? We got to get everybody up and moving. Move your chi. Good for your heart. This is why your doctor says you need 30 minutes. Well, maybe they do. But this is why you need 30 minutes of active exercise every day. Chi. If you have a desk job, every couple of hours you've got to get up and move. Get going, get moving. Really good for you. Good for your pets. Take your pets for a walk. Take them outside, chase them around.